My name is Amanda Roberts from Being Mortal, and I'd like to pose this question for us. Why is it so hard to talk about death, dying, and grief? It's often said that death is the final taboo, that people just don't want to talk about it. But is that true? A 2024 Marie Curie survey found that 59% of people thought we should talk more about death and dying. However, only 14% of people have discussed their end of life wishes. So most of us think we should talk more, but we don't do it. Why might that be? Another 2024 research study found that 72% of people are comfortable talking about death and dying. They avoid the subject of death because they believe others are uncomfortable talking about it. This is very interesting. For years, we've been told that people don't talk about death because they don't want to. Now it seems they do want to, but they don't because they think no one else wants to talk. So, does any of this matter? Why is it important that we talk about death, dying, and grief now? I think it's important that we talk about it for four reasons. Firstly, people are living longer. However, they're not necessarily living well. Many older people are living for years with multiple conditions which severely restrict their quality of life. The need for palliative care, that is, support for the journey from diagnosis of a life-limiting illness to death, is therefore rising. Providing appropriate palliative care relies on honest conversations about life and death. Secondly, where we die has changed. Most people used to die at home. Dying was a natural part of life, and the community cared for people as they died. People were used to seeing and talking about dying and death. Now, 43% of us die in hospital, with many others dying in care facilities. Family members can therefore be removed from the dying process. They don't see it, and it becomes something to be frightened of and not to be spoken of. This means our collective knowledge of how to support people in the last phase of their life has begun to disappear. Our apprehension makes us turn to doctors, funeral directors, and so on to perform the roles traditionally associated with family members. This can be problematic in the case of doctors, as the primary role of doctors is to keep people alive. This is what they're taught in medical school. Death can even seem like a failure. Therefore, some people at the end of life are subjected to medical interventions which may well not prolong their life and can make the dying process more uncomfortable or frightening. They can also be denied the freedom of choice, which is the right of all human beings. So, we want to talk, and it's important to talk. So, what stops us? It seems we're put off by three things. Social norms stop us. Talking about death and dying is seen as morbid and impolite. It's also difficult to find the right time and the right people. Talking to family and friends is difficult because we don't want to upset them. Talking to health professionals is difficult as time is limited, and sometimes professionals don't communicate well around issues such as death. There can also be a lack of trust in end-of-life care systems. Some people feel there's no point in having these tricky conversations, as decisions they make now will not be put into practice later. We know it's difficult to change people's beliefs and behaviours. We therefore need action at two levels. We need to act locally, for example, through building communities' capacity to talk about death and dying and to support people at that stage of their lives. And we also need to act nationally. For example, through government initiatives such as the recent inclusion of grief education in the primary school curriculum. So, what actions can we take as individuals to support this change? I lead a campaign called Being Mortal. Our aim is to support people to celebrate life and to acknowledge, talk about, and plan for death, dying, and grieving. Talking about and planning for these natural life processes helps to reduce fear, promotes well-being, and gives us agency over our own story. At Being Mortal, we currently run a number of activities to help us to achieve this aim. We run Let's Talk workshops for people who want to have a general discussion about death, dying, and grief, and also arts-based workshops, which help people to explore life and death in more non-verbal ways. We also run storytelling workshops, where we tell stories together of the past and present. We also offer final story writing support for people who want to shape their future final story by planning their end-of-life care, funeral or memorial. We offer a funeral celebrancy service by qualified celebrants. We also actively contribute to research and development in the field of death, dying and grief. Leading change can be daunting. The writer Margaret Mead encourages us with this thought. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed individuals can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing which ever has. We want to meet people who'd like to work with us to normalise talk of death and dying, and also people whose clientele would be supported by what we offer. All of our services, with the exception of funeral celebrancy, are offered free of charge. So if you're interested in collaborating, please do get in touch. All of our practice at Being Mortal is evidence-based. Some sources for the points I have made in this video are given here. We do hope to hear from you soon.